Hello, this is a video on how to write or typeset your paper in LyX and how to do citations and bibliographies using the BibTeX database. You may be watching this because you're about to work with me and need to use LyX, or you're just looking for a different paradigm, a completely different option to what you're using now. If, for instance, that may be LibreOffice or heaven forbid Microsoft Word. This isn't for everybody, but in many ways, what I'm going to show you is and has been for 4 decades far and away ahead in features of the traditional Office suites out there. So what is this? I'm showing you here a PDF, which is the resulting document from typesetting something in LyX. So LyX is going to look like a normal text editing software to you, but you're going to be, except that you're going to be editing the content of the document, not editing it in the way it's going to look. LyX has behind it a compiled typesetting language called LaTeX. And so while you're working on your paper, you're going to be dealing with the content, but when you want to see what it's going to look like in PDF, you compile it, and this is what you get. Let me just show you a couple of features of why this may be interesting and why some of us think that Microsoft represents one of the greatest market failures of the 20th century, but I'm not going to say more about that. Okay, first of all, one feature, this is a table of contents here. This kind of thing in LaTeX is all automatically generated. You would never have to format something like this yourself. Moreover, everything can be easily hyperlinked. So you can see here, if I actually click on one of these sections, I'm going to jump within the PDF to that section. Secondly, not of interest to everybody, but LaTeX is famous if you have much math in your document, you may already be using LaTeX or LyX. I'll briefly show you how easy that is. And another interesting thing, because you don't have to focus on how things are going to look on the final layout when you're composing, you actually don't, for instance, or not most of the time, you would not want to tell software exactly where to put a table or a figure. You say where they become, you place them in your document where they are first referenced, where they become relevant, and then at compile time, when LyX is generating the PDF, it will choose where to put that floating table in the best possible place in terms of pretty layout. So there's a lot of things like that you don't have to worry about and you don't have to deal with when you're focusing on content. In addition, my main motivation for sharing this video is that I still see students using very inefficient ways to do their citations and build bibliographies. And so I'm going to show you that this LaTeX approach chooses a BibTeX database as a very transparent text-based way to list references that might be of interest to you now or in the future, and to call them into your document. And a reference list like this is all automatically formatted, as are the citations in it. You would never have to worry about the format there. And indeed, if you need to change the format for one journal format to another, one style, all of that is done by just changing a setting that affects the behavior at compile time when the PDF is being generated. Okay, I just want to show you all the way from scratch, installing LyX, going and doing a mock literature search and compiling your own so-called database of references and using them in a document. So let's start. Here's lyx.org page. You can download. I didn't mention, but this software is entirely free and open source. So that means that it is available for whatever your platform is, Windows, Mac, Linux, even some more exotic ones here. And if you click on one of these, it's going to install LyX and the underlying LaTeX all in Go. Of course, if you're on Linux, you don't need to come here because the package manager in your operating system is going to know how to, we'll just install this with a click of a button instantly. But once you have installed that, you'll have an application icon or whatever to click on to launch LyX. I'll show you in a moment what that looks like. But let me also send you one more place. This is where I have just put together a few files as a template to make getting started easier. So if you go here to the files, you can just download them all as a zip file. And so there's a LyX file here, and if we then go and open LyX with this file, you'll see something like this. So here is what the document looks like when you're editing. And as I mentioned, if I just, in my case, press Control-R, up pops this compiled version in PDF. Okay, I'm going to actually delete everything here so that we can start from scratch and just show you the basic steps to create a document. So there are very few different kinds of type of text that I want to enter. So, but one of them is a title, an author, and then there's only a couple of different section heading levels, and that's it. You don't deal with formatting, what kind of font you want, and all that kind of thing when you're writing content in LaTeX. You let LaTeX generally take care of that, and unless you want to mess with it. And so it's, I won't get into all of the details here, but I'll show you where the excellent built-in help is. In any case, well, that's already set as a title here. If I want to set this as an author, and that's it. After that, the only other thing I would do is have a couple of section levels, and you should generally have some text in between section levels to introduce them. And let's say I had a second one. So to give you an example of how easy it is, or what the approach is for making references of any kind, let's say that in this section I wanted to make a reference, I wanted to refer to something here. Well, these numbers, 1.1, 1.2, LyX is showing these to me now, but these are actually all generated at compile time. So by the way, again, if I say click compile, here's what the PDF looks like so far. But if I want to refer to something in here, I shouldn't have to type in section 1.1. What I would instead do is give it a sensible name. So I insert label, and we'll just call it section details. And now if I want to say in and refer to that section, I would just say insert and reference, and I'd pick here section details from the list. And in fact, I'm going to make that a formatted reference, just to change the style. Okay, and so now if I compile, I get this. Now, the way that looks, you can change the style for the document. But again, this is already immediately hyperlinked. So if I click on this, it will jump me to that section. Similarly, if I want to include a table of contents, it's really just a matter of adding it in there. And again, now, as soon as I press compile, I get that table of contents automatically generated, and it's hyperlinked already. Okay, math, I'll just very quickly demonstrate, but you can skip over the math part if you're not interested in equations. So just to show you how easy this stuff is, if I want to, now I could be generating something like this by clicking on these, but there's also a succinct way to type such things. So if I want to Okay, I won't go on with this, but just like everything else, if I want to refer to this equation, I'm going to give it a name rather than having later on to know the number of it, right? So far, if I now compile it, because I named this equation, it has a number, and I can then insert a reference to the equation. And so, okay, and again, compiling it will look like this. Now I have a reference to that equation. Okay, I won't show you figures and tables, but you similarly, very simply insert them, and if you want to make reference to them, you do so by name, not by number, and everything is dealt with nicely in generating the PDF. Let me, though, talk about references and citations. Okay, let's say I'm doing a literature search, and I'll go to Google Scholars, demonstrate how that works there. Note, by the way, I have in my settings, I've got a couple of things set up here. One of them is that I've turned my my library links on. Actually, maybe not so much. Okay, so I don't know, let me turn on those library links. So make sure to do that. And the other is relating to, actually this is not mandatory, but relating to the references, so bibliography manager. And it's set so that my favorite format, the database format for references is BibTeX. First one listed there. And so what will that do? It means that when I get search results, I've actually got a direct link to import the citation here. In fact, if I hadn't done that, I would still just be able to click on getting it this way. Right. What we want not to do is to copy these things that are formatted already in a given format. There's no way to then later convert from one to the other without coming back here and getting a different text. So this is not the way to go. What you want is to have a database and then have software do all of your formatting and sorting for you on the fly. Now, this is a database entry that's generated by Google. Let's just have a look at it. It's pure text, okay? So if you're familiar with the lingo, which is still mostly sensible, this is ASCII. It's pure text. It's just the Latin characters that you see. And so a database in BibTeX consists of nothing but these characters. I'm just going to copy and paste these into a text file. Here's a text editor, and I'm just pasting in. Now, the colors here, that's my editor coloring the markup. But there's really nothing in here other than these characters. So, there's no color saved in the file. If this is esoteric, don't worry about it. But, text file means that the way this file is stored on disk it's human readable. It's literally just the way it looks here, which is completely different from, say, a word processing proprietary binary file format like Microsoft Word. Now, what's not esoteric, it means that when you're creating a BibTeX database, you want to use a text editor, a plain text editor, not a word processor. So that's easy to find if you're on a Mac. You can also find one on your other operating system, but I'm not going to try and guess what the application is called. But you want to save this as a plain text file. Instead of having a .txt extension in the name or something like that, you want to call it .bib for BibTeX. Okay, so there's the file name. Now, just to show you very briefly, how does the format of BibTeX entry work? These line numbers, again, that's not part of the file. That's my editor. You know what? I'm just going to switch to a different text editor. Okay, it's a bit easier for me. So here's the, so I'm just starting over with a different editor. Here's the content that I just got from Google. Okay, so the format of of a bibliographic entry in this database is this thing. So there's a few different kinds of reference types. This is an article. And then immediately following that is called the key. And so this thing is the name, just like we were naming equations and sections. This is the name for this reference for all time. So I'm going to use this reference maybe in some other document a few years that's related to the subject, and this is how I'll want to refer to it. So I'll call this something like that. And note that it's exactly, the database consists of exactly what you see here. I can actually add other fields if I want here. And this will, because BibTeX is never going to recognize that, it's not going to ever have an effect. Okay, anyway, I save this, and what does that mean? Let's do one more. If I go back here, actually, so just going to, if you're at your university or logged into your university, going to the original journal page for citation. Now it looks like I need to click one more time to get that article. Anyway, you end up on the journals page, and then there's going to be a citation link. Okay. And so again, notice that I can choose a formatted version. This is not how I want to live life, where I'm compiling my own references. I want to go down and get the database version. And so here's what I got. Now you can see this time it looks a little bit longer. I'll just copy that, and I'm going to paste it in here to my database, which is just a text file. So here's the one I had before. I've now added another, also an article. You can see this citation looks a little bit longer. If you get it from the journal, they may throw in something like the abstract in there, which is obviously never going to make it into a bibliography, but you can have anything you like here in the database file. Okay, so I'll just give this a different name. I could pick that name, by the way. DOIs are a perfectly good way I'll leave it. DOIs are a perfectly good way, key to use. Okay, so now I have this database. It's a text file called swbrefs.bib. And if I go back into LyX, I can now insert a bibliography. And I want to now add a database to my bibliography. So a database here is a text file with some number of references. I can add several. So I'm going to add this one I just made, which is called swbrefs. And I'm choosing a default style. It's the Canadian Journal of Economics. Okay, but I can later at any point change that style. Whoops, I put it in the wrong place. I probably want my bibliography at the end. So now, by the way, if I compile immediately, here's what I get. There's references, but there's none are listed. Now, why are none listed? Because there are no citations, right? So the reference list is made up only of things that are cited. And if I want to now cite something, I would just insert a citation. I've got two keys, that SWL migration thing I named and the other DOI. I could cite one or the other, or in fact, I could even cite them both. And it's giving me a preview of what that's going to look like. There are different styles. So this set of options for the style depends on my citation style that I've associated already with the document settings. Here's a parenthetical one. Here's an in-text one. So much of the time we're using parenthetical citations at the end of a sentence or phrase rather than as part of a sentence. This has been shown, and then I've got that citation there. And now when I compile my document, I'm going to have the citation all formatted nicely, and the appropriate references will be formatted perfectly according to Canadian Journal of Economics, in this case, format. And as I said, I can change that at any point here just by changing the citation style of everything. There's Chicago. Now when I compile, I've got Chicago style. Okay. And so with that, I think we're pretty much done. Just to tell you that there's fantastic built-in tutorial and help in LyX and to get you started. And by the way, in terms of automatic hyperlinking, you know, once again, these citations now are, I mean, the references on the same page. If I wanted to insert a new page here, what's that? Okay, actually, okay. So now I've got my citations on a new page. And if I click on a reference, it's going to give me straight to the appropriate place in the bibliography. Okay, so there we went through installing LyX from scratch. I showed you where to do that, and creating a new database, in other words, text file listing references in this BibTeX format, and then creating a LyX document from scratch and using citations. So hopefully to some of you that may sound like a nice alternative to typesetting and writing papers. You can focus on content rather than the way it's going to look, final layout. And you know, the other nice thing about this is all of the files, it's not just the bibliography, but in fact the LyX file and any LaTeX behind the scenes, everything is a text file, as a lot of stuff in open source software. So you can always go and look immediately, look exactly at, and indeed edit the actual underlying content of the file. Okay, that's maybe again esoteric, but I hope this will be of interest to some of you, and thanks for watching.